Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. Good afternoon. Let's watch a video about a Swedish museum, shall we? V. Birchwood, do a subscribe, preemptive like. I toured one of the best historical fashion museums in Europe. Now, this is an hour-long video, so I'm not going to watch the whole thing. I did do this thing, and I saw Gustavus Adolphus. Definitely want to see that. And this looks like maybe Charles the 12th. And there was one more, whoever this is. So I'm going to be skipping around a bit. Again, if you want to watch it on your own or the whole thing, original link, top description. Let's go.
I'm here today with my friend Magdalena Regina, who is a pedagogue at the Royal Armoury in Stockholm, Sweden, as well as an art historian. And today she's going to show us around the museum, and it's the oldest museum in Sweden. In what year was it built in?
So this became a museum in 1628, and it's been a museum ever since.
Perfect.
Jesus. That's so cool. Knowing there was a museum that was a museum at the time, that we have museums now that have stuff in from that time period of the museum. Does that make sense? It's so cool because it shows you when you have people having museums and looking back in history in the 1600s, it gives you the sense that I think might be obvious to some, but I don't think it's too obvious, that everyone was living in the present when they lived. And so it's fascinating thinking about all the times in history when it's like that was the present. There was no future. You know what I mean? Let's go.
And it's moved locations, right? So the collection is really old, but the building itself, it wasn't always here.
Yeah, so now we are in the basement of the Royal Palace here in Stockholm, and we have been here in this particular location since 1978, but we have been a museum since 1628, and we've moved about 15 times since we became a museum, so a lot of locations.
A lot of locations. All right, well, let's go into the museum and see all the interesting things that are in there.
Do it.
And explore all the little hidden gems.
Welcome. So the Swedish Royal Armoury is one of the oldest
Liverstockmaren, Liverstockmaren.
museums in the world. We have been a museum since 1628. We have one of the largest collections in the world of early modern clothing. We count about 40,000 items in our collections. Now, not all of that is clothing, but much of it is. And the things that we do have that are clothes, that collection includes some completely unique things that you just cannot find anywhere else. But before we dig into the actual collections in the museums and look at many of the textile things that we have that are so special, I'm going to explain what kind of museum this is.
I don't know if it's the width of this part that's making this look even more skinny than it is, like an optical illusion. But that doesn't seem possible to have a waist that small.
Is how it becomes a museum and why it's not like many other museums today. This man right here, Gustavus Adolphus II, he was king of Sweden in the beginning of the 17th century. He is a descendant of Gustav Vasa, who many consider the sort of founding father of Sweden. And Gustavus Adolphus here, he inherits a throne, crown, and 3 separate wars. Now, one of these wars is against his own cousin called Sigismund, and while Sigismund calls himself King of Sweden, Gustavus Adolphus, he also calls himself King of Sweden, and so they two fight it out.
So Gustav Vasa to you is like what George Washington is to us? Is that a fair comparison? It's weird comparing European countries to our figures because they're so relatively recent over here, but
in this conflict, Gustavus Adolphus is going to be injured on 2 separate occasions in the same year, 1627. And these 2 costumes that we have in front of us are the clothes that he wore when he sustained these 2 injuries. We can actually see the injuries still on this left costume, which he wore in the early summer of 1627. You have a bullet hole in the hip from a sort of surprise attack by Gustavus Adolphus and his
right there.
Soldiers. They were discovered. Shooting starts to happen towards this little boat that the king is in. He takes a bullet to the hip. He's carried off and patched up. Fortunately,
How would you be able to get the blood off the clothing?
he makes it through with just a little sort of flesh wound, if you will. But this second injury is much more serious. This is a gunshot wound that he sustains at the Battle of Dirschau, and you can see the blood that has sort of dribbled down the front of this buff coat here. The king takes a bullet to the neck. Apparently, it lodges itself between the shoulder blade and the bones in the actual spine. This is a near-death experience for Gustavus Adolphus, and you can see the sort of blood here. We also have several of the shirts that he wore under both of these costumes. The fact that Gustavus Adolphus survives this injury is seen as a sort of divine intervention, if you will, and so he makes the official decision to preserve these two costumes.
Survivorship bias. It's like if you have 100 ants and then you kill 90% of them, then the 10% are gonna think, I mean, they're ants, but all right, 100 human men, and you killed 99 of them. All right, there's always going to be one left. You're only killing 99, but if you're that one person left, you're like, I had a 99% chance of dying. I must be ordained or something. It's not very surprising that they thought that way. I wanted to say something else. Oh, would you still be able to like get the DNA from blood like that's this old, or is it just no?
In the Royal Armoury, and that decision is made in March of 1628, and it explicitly reads that these costumes are to be preserved in the Royal Armoury for all eternity. And so they've been on display more or less ever since, and they're considered the sort of founding objects of this museum right here. They are not the oldest things we have in the museum. I think the oldest is a blade for a sword from the 12th century, but they are considered the inception of this collection as it stands today, and it has grown and changed a lot over the centuries since, but think of it as a sort of cult memorial to kings. Things have had different ways to these collections. Some things are absolutely what they sort of say on the box, other things probably not, so the research is ongoing all the time.
Hey, that's how I trust a museum more, or anyone doing some kind of scientific thing, where if you acknowledge things that, you know, maybe they're real, maybe they're not, it gives more credibility to the stuff you're sure about.
And many items change information as we have more information about them as well. We have moved now to one of the costumes that are ordered for the wedding of Gustavus Adolphus, and he marries in 1620 to a princess called Maria Eleonora of Brandenburg, and she is much more important than he is at that point. Her father and then brother is one of the electors of the Holy Roman Emperor, and Sweden at this point is a kind of, you know, up-and-coming superpower. So it takes 4 years of negotiating for them to actually agree to marry Gustavus Adolphus, and he travels down incognito to Brandenburg to propose to Maria Eleonora, and he does this under a code name. The code name is G-A-R-S, and he calls himself Captain Gars. And you might wonder, okay, Gars, what does that mean? Well, it means Gustavus Adolphus Rex Svecia, so Gustavus Adolphus, the King of Sweden. Very incognito. Everyone knows it's him, of course, and he shows up in this incredible costume made with Tyrian purple, silk, satin, and wool, embroidered all over with these fantastic fertility symbols of gold thread. So you have acorns and little flowers and all sorts of incredible iconography here with fertility and abundance in mind. And he shows up with this and proposes to Maria Eleonora, and she just falls head over heels in love with Gustavus Adolphus. She's never seen a man like him before. I don't know if it would have worked on you, this particular costume. Maybe it would have worked on me, I don't know, but it definitely works on Maria Eleonora. She can't eat when her husband isn't there. She can't sleep or breathe when he's not there. She is obsessed with him.
Nah, it started off romantic. It's getting a little crazy.
He thinks that she's okay, mostly. He's nowhere near as in love with her as she is with him. So Maria Eleonora is, of course, incredibly worried when Gustavus Adolphus goes off to war, and he is off at war almost all of the time. He is going to enter Sweden into this time's big conflict, and that is a war that at the time is just known as the German War, but that we today know as the 30 Years' War. And Gustavus Adolphus's decision to enter Sweden into this conflict is going to prolong the war by 18 years. years. So that has enormous
Father of
consequences
modern
for
warfare.
all of Europe and for him, because he will die only 2 years after entering into this conflict. And before he dies, he has sort of spun the propaganda machine in an ingenious way. He has proven himself to be an incredibly talented military commander, and this leads to him becoming one of the most famous individuals in all of Europe in his time. Many consider him the sort of father of modern warfare, and the items that we have,
because of his kind of new tactics and dealing with firearms coupled with, you know, your spears or cavalry and whatnot. I believe he, you know, improved that, you know, the way that you fight on battlefields with firearms.
in this display here are from Gustavus Adolphus's moment of death. They are, in a sense, relics for a Lutheran Protestant country, and what many Lutheran countries do in the 16th and 17th centuries is that countries that undergo a Reformation kind of replace the symbols of saints with the symbol of kings. So kings really sort of hammer home that message that you are to worship us now, and that was a very important identity for many people in this time as well. So the items.
Classic. It's always about power. It's fascinating, a little depressing, just seeing how nothing that humans do, maybe I'm being too much of a downer, but like nothing that humans do in history, anything that humans do in history and warfare, whatever, it's never purely just out of the good of the heart, usually, or just like for a better life. And if it is, it's quickly turned into power struggle once again. Maybe I'm being too much of a downer.
Here
you know?
Are taken from Gustavus Adolphus's body in battle as he fell in that same battle. And he dies in the Battle of Litzen, which took place on the 6th of November, 1632. And the most famous item that we have from this battle is, of course, the horse that we have in this display. This is the actual horse that Gustavus Adolphus rode when he was slain. It is an Oldenburger by the name of Streif or Streif.
That's crazy.
As we call him today. Streif here, he survives as an artifact for a very simple reason, namely that he did not die at the Battle of Litzen. He survived the battle and came with the king's funerary procession all the way back up to Sweden. And that funerary procession took almost 2 years.
I'm curious, did they like kill the horse afterwards, or did they just wait until it died of natural causes for them to, you know, do taxidermy and stuff it?
Because, you know, it was the middle of winter, or he died in November, and you couldn't really drive through Denmark from central Germany the way you might do today. So they really had to take their time to get the king's remains back after he had been killed in battle. And Streif, he comes along and he survives for about 6 months after the king dies.
Okay.
And legend has it that after his owner died, he didn't want to eat or sleep for several months, and that's why he died. We have no real evidence that that's what happened.
Yeah, when it comes to statements like that, I just, maybe it's true. It's a nice story, but I'm not going to take anyone's word on that.
But as far as we do know, he is the second oldest taxidermied horse anywhere in the world.
By the way, I love her approach so far in showing, you know, some things that might not be true, and I think that's such a good quality, especially someone with her profession. So.
And he is our mascot. You can see him, this little pin here, and he is in our logo as well. The first descriptions of visitors coming to see Streif here, they date to 1644, so he has been on display for a very, very long time, and he has always been on display. Even though the museum collections have moved almost 15 times, he has always been up, and the only time he is put away is during the Second World War, when there were fears that Stockholm might be bombed, etc. And he is placed away in a hidden location. And when he is taken out again, all the newspapers are full of poems in his honor, and people are so happy that he's finally back. This is what we call...
Luckily, I don't think Stockholm was bombed in World War II, so that's good. I hope I'm right there. If I'm not, and it was, obviously, then... But I'm curious, how do you do this, you know? The taxidermy stuffing part. Obviously, you have to, remove all of its internal organs. Is it just the pelt itself? And then it's stuffed with something? Are there bones inside it somehow? I'm assuming it's just the pelt. But then what do they stuff it with? And how do they get the perfect form?
In his honor, and people are so happy that he's finally back. This is what we call the heart cloth. And after Gustavus Adolphus's death and his embalming, his heart has been removed from his chest and treated with different liquids and substances so that it will not rot away. This cloth is the very cloth that the king's heart was placed in. You can see the kind.
Yeah, you can even see the indentations. Because these are like equal things. I'm sure it was placed here and folded over to have that
of shape of the trace of the heart.
Yeah,
you imagine
cool.
it as a sort of fist-sized and shaped object wrapped in this as a sort of wrapping paper. And the story.
It reminds me of the Shroud of Turin. Like the one that supposedly has like Jesus's face on it because it covered him. I'm pretty sure it's not real, but just made me think of it. Or it's not genuine.
Cloth is very sad. Maria Leonora, who is unbelievably in love with her husband Gustavus Adolphus, she cannot tolerate the passing of her husband. She actually isn't told of his death for almost 2 weeks after he dies because people just don't know how she will react to it. She has actually traveled down to Germany to be near him on the front line, so she isn't far away. When she finally finds out that he has been killed, of course her entire world collapses and she begins to obsessively collect items that have belonged to her beloved Gustavus Adolphus. And the most gruesome thing that she chooses to save is the king's heart.
Different time. That's okay. I guess it's sweet in a way.
She visits the church where his body is placed to lay in state, and she somehow gets hold of this heart that has been embalmed and placed in this cloth, and she carries this item with her for almost 2 years. Wherever she goes, she carries it with her. At night, she stores the king's heart on a little shelf next to her bed. She has it in this little fine metal box where she opens it and kisses and caresses and fondles the heart. She spends her waking hours with the king's body as they travel their way back up to Sweden. When courtiers ask her, Your Majesty, what are you doing? Why are you holding on to the king's heart in a box like this? She says, why are you asking? If the king and I loved each other, then surely his heart belongs to me.
All right, these are different times, so it's hard for me to, it's not like there's a wife today. There's a story of a wife today who's holding on to her husband's heart. Different times, but it seems like even the people around her at the time were like, are you okay? What are you doing here? The heart belongs to me. It's a bit crazy. But again, I see it more as fascinating human nature and historical. So who cares if I'm
and they
slightly,
have a hard time arguing
weird.
That.
Guys, that's going to be it for now. Again, if you want to see the whole video, you can watch it yourself. Original link top of the description. I hope everyone's doing well. Hope you learned something or can teach me something down in the comments. You guys are always great. And I hopefully will see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning. Bye, guys.